afternoon, class.
Good afternoon, Madam Hooch.
Good afternoon, Amanda. Good afternoon. Welcome to your first flying lesson. Well, what are you waiting for? Everyone step up to the left side of their broomstick. Come on now, hurry up. Stick your right hand over the broom and say up. With feeling.
Shut up, Harry.
Now, once you've got hold of your broom, I want you to mount it. And grip it tight. You don't want to be sliding off the end. When I blow my whistle, I want each of you to kick off from the ground hard. Keep your broom steady. Hover for a moment. Then lean forward slightly and touch back down. On my whistle, 3, 2... Mr. Longbottom.
I will talking about lesson shapes. A good lesson must contain a judicious combination of coherence and variety. Coherence means that students can see a logical shape to the lesson, and variety means different types of activities and a wide selection of materials to the class. Example: even if there are 3 separate activities per variety, there must be a specific connection between them or some reason to change direction. So I will give you a specific example that you can see in the screen. The example is, it wouldn't make sense for students to listen to an audio track, ask some comprehension question, and then completely change the activity to something totally unrelated to listening. This example is clear that it hasn't coherence with what is being done, because by changing the activity, we are losing the connection and traceability. So I will give you some rules to keep in mind in a lesson. The first is there must be some variety in a class, period. This is correct. Second, the ideal compromise then is to plan a lesson that is internally consistent but allows students to do different things as they go along. This is correct. Third, there must be a balance between commitment, study, and student activation. This is correct. And the last one is the effect of having a class doing a 45-minute exercise would be equally damaging. The lack of variety, together with the implacability of set procedure, would go against the possibility of a real commitment from the students. This rule is incorrect to do. Then I will show you 7 planning questions to take into account when you will do a lesson to the students. Teachers will answer 7 fundamental questions when deciding which activities to bring to a lesson. The first is, who exactly are the students for this activity? The age, the level, the cultural background, and individual characteristics of students must be taken into account when deciding which activities, tests, or methodologies to use in the classroom. This includes an understanding of the types of individual differences in learning style. Second is, what do we want to do and why? We must decide what we want to do in the lesson in terms of activities, skills, and language. We also need to know why we want to do it. Before deciding to use an activity just because we or students like it, we should try to predict what it will accomplish. What will the students know, be able to do, understand or feel after the activity that they didn't know? In other words, what is the learning outcome of the activity? I have an example for you. Is give to the students a better understanding of a vocabulary area, providing them with better listening strategies, teaching them how to build conditional sentence and improve their oral fluency. Third question is, how long will it take? Some activities that at first glance seem very imaginative end up lasting very little time. Others require considerable preparation time, discussion time, student planning time, etc. A student's trust in the teacher can be affected if they never finish what they set out to do. I have an example. Is students are frequently irritated when teachers keep running after the bell rings because they have not finished an activity. Teachers, on the other hand, feel uncomfortable if they have overestimated the amount of time something can take and therefore are left with free time and have no clear idea of what to do. The next question is, how does it work? We must ask us the following questions. Who does what first? How and when should students be placed in pairs or groups? When do we give instructions? What should those instructions be? What should we be doing while students work in groups? I have an example for you. If the teachers have had a good experience in their classes answering these questions, but even they, when trying something new, need to think carefully about the mechanics of an activity. The next question is, what will be needed? Teachers must decide whether to use the whiteboard, a CD or tape player, an overhead projector, a data projector, some roll cards, or a computer. It's important to think about the best way to do something. It is also important to consider the physical environment of the classroom itself and how that could affect any teaching equipment we wish to use. The next is, what can go wrong? If teachers try to identify problems that may come up in their lesson, they are in a much better position to deal with them if they do occur. This doesn't mean that we can predict everything that can happen. This would make us more conscious to take into account that not everything can go well and that we will have to fix the mistake in our next lessons. And the seventh question is, how will it fit in with what comes before and after? An activity by itself can be useful and engaging and can generate a lot of good language. But what connection, if any, do you have with the activities that come before and after? Is there a linguistic link with previous or future activities? Perhaps 2 or 3 activities are linked by topic, one leading to the other? The point of answering this question for ourselves is to make sure we have a reasonable view of the overall shape of our lesson and that isn't made up of a related waste.
This is about the ways that the teachers usually create to have a kind of guide for the class. Here we can mention that some of them just write down exactly what they're going to do and note down each sentence that the students are going to say. I know, this sounds crazy, but on the other hand, we have some teachers that use note forms hints to themselves, like checks comprehension. So we can't forget those who write down some ordered paragraph headings, and also the teacher who produce flow diagrams or maybe random notes. But we can't underestimate those who just kept their plans in their minds. I don't know how they do that. However, it could be not appropriate for observers or possible substitute teachers. So I have to say that this is not all what the formats contain. They also include some aspects like description of the students, where there will be a general description of them, or in other cases, a specific description. They also have objectives which help the teacher to check if the class was successful, or they can change something to get a goal of the class met. Don't forget we usually have general objectives and specific objectives. Another important thing is the procedures, where the teachers select how their plan is going to be executed by using some things like patterns of interaction, organizing times, or the organization of the class. Anticipated problems is one more thing that is included here, and it helps to the teacher to suggest a kind of plan B if something goes wrong. Finally, other things to consider are extra activities if things go quicker than anticipated, and also material or resources that are going to be used during the class.
The actual form of a plan becomes important for teacher in training, especially when they are about to be observed. This plan blank, for example, show one such institutional template. There are two elements in this template that we have not so far mentioned. Firstly, there is a column called success indicators, where the planner has to note down how they will be able to measure the success of what happens. This forces the planner to focus on exactly how both teacher and students will know if something has worked. In other words, if the learning outcome had been met. There is also a final heading for homework, future worker, which will sum the planner thinking ahead beyond the actual lesson to be taught. Other trainers and schools may have their own formats, of course, and they may look significantly different from the example. A lot will depend on the priorities of the training course and perhaps the teaching qualification which the trainers are working towards. To sum up, the purpose of a plan is to be as useful as possible to the people who are going to use it. Teachers, students, whatever you want. This is the end. It what should get the form in which teachers put their trust.
Planning a lesson sequence. Well, for this topic, it's important the variety in class activities and the behavior of teacher as an antidote to boredom of students. It is important that our students know the general goals and objectives for their program of study. But it's important that they know in a general way and it doesn't specific. Why? Well, because if the students know exactly what to expect, they are likely to be less motivated than aroused by curiosity. And we may lose enthusiasm for the lessons. Another point to keep in mind is that we must always maintain a common thread between classes. The need for consistency and variety is just as necessary in multi-lesson sequences, and it's in individual lessons. Planning is also a way to get into reflection. For example, some teachers keep diaries in which they record their thoughts about what happened as soon as possible after the lesson is over. That way, they can read their comments later and reflect on how they feel about what happened in the class. In this way, they can improve their education methodology. On the other hand, good teachers are also need to evaluate how their students are progressing. This can be done through a variety of measures, including homework, speaking assessments, where the teacher rates each student's participation and progress test. As teachers, we need to plan future lessons based on what happened in the previous class. After class and before the next. Well, have indicators of success is very important. When we evaluate lessons or activities, we need to ask ourselves, was the activity successful? Did the students enjoy it? Did you learn anything from that? What exactly did you get out of the activity? How could the activity be changed to make it more effective next time? So we will determine those indicators of success. We will change what we are not doing very well. On way to this is to ask students, for example, to write 2 things they want more or 2 things they want less in class. We can also give students a special evaluation from each in which they have to rate different activities with a score, or put them in some kind of order and then add comments about what they thought.